Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to All Together Now, working with external stakeholders. This is the second program in our series about working with external stakeholders that play an integral role in collections care. My name is Maddie Cooper. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Associate Preventive Conservator here at the Conservation Center for Art and Historic Artifacts in Philadelphia. And I just want to welcome everyone and thank you for coming, and also give thanks to our major funder for this series, which is the National Endowment for the Humanities. Soon I'll be turning it over to CCHA's preservation specialist, Amelia Burham-Amig. But I just want to go over some housekeeping things really quickly before I completely give the reins over to Amelia. So first, there is closed captioning enabled on this webinar. You might have to enable that function through your Zoom platform. There should be a closed captioning button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or it might be somewhere else depending on your version. But if you enable closed captioning, it might take a couple seconds, but then you should be able to read along. Second, this is a webinar style meeting, meaning you can't turn on your screen or use your microphone to communicate with us, but please do drop questions and comments in the chat as we go along, and Amelia will be sure to get to those at the end of the webinar. I just want to remind everyone also that this program is being recorded so that you can access it later on. And just remind everyone that the next program, Working with the Conservator, is next Wednesday on March 23rd. And also just that at the end of this webinar, you'll be sent directly to a post-program survey. And we really ask, pretty please, that you fill out the post-program survey. It should just take a couple of minutes, but it's really helpful for us as we plan future programming that is helpful to you all. So with that, I will turn it over to Amelia.
Thank you, Maddie, and good afternoon, everyone. Afternoon for me at any rate. Again, my name is Amelia Amig, and my pronouns are she and her, and I'm a preservation specialist with the Conservation Center for Art and Historic Artifacts. I am speaking with you today from the great Iron City of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I would like to acknowledge that Pittsburgh is built on the traditional ancestral lands of the Shawnee and Osage and other Native peoples who came before us. So thank you for joining us for this second episode in this series, in which we are looking at the working relationships between cultural institutions and 4 different external groups. Last week, we looked at artifact donors. Today, we'll tackle fine arts service providers. And the upcoming sessions will look at working with conservators and digitization vendors. Each of these stakeholders can be an important partner for an archive, library, or museum as you care for your collections. And so with this series, we are spotlighting these 4 groups, taking a look at who they are and what they do, and offering some tips that can hopefully help benefit the relationship from both sides. Before we get started, and apologies for the repeat if you joined us last week, but a quick note about our organization, the Conservation Center for Art and Historic Artifacts, or CCAHA. We are a nonprofit conservation lab and preservation services facility. Our conservators specialize in the treatment of paper-based items, including books, photographs, and other works on paper. Our preservation services staff, of which I am a part, work in the field, presenting programs and helping institutions to plan for the future of their collections. CCAHA also offers digitization services, fundraising assistance, housing and framing, and more. We are based in Philadelphia, but we work with organizations and clients all across the country. You can learn more about us and what we do at our website, which is ccaha.org. All right, so let's get to it. I am really jazzed for this session because fine arts service providers can be such helpful partners for organizations that acquire and manage collections. I spent several years as a project manager for one of the largest fine art service vendors here in the US. And I think that these companies do some incredible behind the scenes work that is so important to helping a cultural institution fulfill its mission. So let's start by looking at what exactly is a fine art service provider. Fine art service companies specialize in the packing and transportation of artwork and artifacts. Typically, they will only work with these types of objects, and this is in part what separates them from most commercial shippers or household moving companies. Vendors can offer many services, including art handling, installation, packing, crating, transportation, and storage. They may undertake small projects like installing a few pieces of artwork in a corporate office, or really big projects like moving an entire museum collection to an off-site storage facility so that the museum can undergo renovation. Many companies also offer rigging for moving and installing pieces that are complex and heavy, like an outdoor sculpture. Their staff include art handlers who are trained in handling, packing, and installing, crating specialists, project managers, storage managers, transportation coordinators, warehouse staff, and more. Most vendors offer some level of truck transport, and their drivers are also trained in art handling. Some fine art shippers are regional, maybe serving one metropolitan area with one or two facilities. Larger companies will have multiple offices across the country and even internationally. For firms that offer truck transit, their fleet of trucks will use their various warehouses as hubs. Items in a shipment may spend a few days or weeks in one or more of these facilities while they await the next step of their journey. Shipping warehouses are typically discreet from the outside for obvious reasons. In addition to storing artwork and artifacts, vendors will also store empty crates. Maybe an institution is reusing a crate that they had made for a certain piece, or they may need to temporarily store empty crates from a traveling exhibition that they're hosting. It's common for bigger museums and other institutions, and also private collectors who have larger collections, to have storage with one or more fine art service companies. Beyond the core operations of packing, transportation, and storage, a shipper's facility may also have spaces that accommodate photography or conservation treatment, serve as a viewing area, and be a workspace for activities like inventory. They may also have a TSA screening area if the shipper has been approved to screen crates of artwork and artifacts that are destined for the airport and air transit. Fine art service providers connect the different players in the cultural heritage ecosystem. These companies provide support to museums, libraries, and archives in their day-to-day work, their acquisitions, their loans, and their exhibitions. They also work with private collectors, galleries, corporate collections, businesses, universities, hospitals, and other groups who acquire and care for artwork and artifacts. A shipper might transport a huge blockbuster exhibition from one major museum to another, or they can help pack and deliver one object from a private donor to its new home at a small historical society a few states away. Shippers are contracted to transport items to and from auction houses, framers, and conservation studios. And they may also work with insurance companies to move and store items that are involved in damage claims. A shipper will offer different levels of service for packing and transport that can be customized based on the type of object and its specific needs, as well as the purpose of the shipment. I should say that international shipments have additional considerations and requirements, and we'll not talk about those today. But let's take a look at some of the more common methods used in domestic shipments. So for a basic shipment, there are two broad styles of packing to be aware of. The first is soft packing. Soft packing is a term that can mean different things to different people, but in general, it is packing that doesn't involve an exterior crate. It can utilize a variety of materials such as plastic or foam sheeting and bubble wrap. Often tissue paper, blank newsprint, and other types of foam and plastic are used as well. Soft-packed items can be given extra protection from total or partial cardboard facing, as you see in this image of a beautiful pack job by our registrar at CCAHA. This style might be called a slipcase or a pinch pack to some. And a soft-packed item can also be secured into a larger cardboard box or bin for transit. Soft-pack materials are usually temporary, so used once and thrown away. With any packing, your choices should be guided by the object and the shipment. Consider the type of object, its condition, its value, the distance and the method it's traveling, and also the staff and equipment who are handling the object throughout its journey. Soft packing is usually a safe and cost-effective choice for protecting items on shorter trips, but it can also be efficient for long-distance trips, especially if the items are being handled and transported by fine art service professionals. So crating is an amazing world unto itself. Broadly, crates are boxes with a solid exterior shell that are lined with safe materials to cushion and protect the object during transit. Though other materials are used, crates are usually made of specially treated wood and plywood. Larger vendors can have multiple crate shops across their network of offices, and an object can either be packed in its crate at the shipper's facility or at your location, depending on the circumstances. Crating is often suggested for items that are traveling long distance, items that are fragile, complex, or of high value, and items that are traveling as part of multi-venue exhibitions. Companies can offer several crate styles with increasing levels of complexity and cost, and crates can be highly customized to an object. Crating has many factors to consider, and it can involve a lot of back and forth with the staff at the shipping company. Having an item measured and the crate built, delivered, and packed might require several weeks of lead time and multiple visits. And the shipper can propose different timelines based on the needs of your project. But keep in mind that extra time is usually required if you're interested in having something crated. For domestic transit, shippers will have various styles of trucks that they'll use for the different routes and services that they offer. Trucks can include small sprinter vans, like you see in the top image, and straight trucks or box trucks, like you see in the bottom image, and also tractor trailers, which are so big I had to put them on another slide. For many vendors, having dual drivers is an automatic feature, but it doesn't hurt to clarify that and other requirements. Trucks are usually typically climate controlled, equipped with air ride stabilization, which means that the cargo feels less bounce on the road, and alarmed and tracked with GPS. I will add that the GPS tracking is not something that companies normally share directly with clients. It's not like Amazon where you can watch the map and see that the truck is 5 stops from your house. But it is certainly something that if you have concerns during a shipment, you can ask your shipper for an update and they can let you know at least approximately where the item is in its journey. That's where we park that tractor trailer. So fine art service companies typically offer two main types of ground transit: consolidated shuttles that make scheduled stops along a predetermined route, and exclusive use shipments that go directly from point A to point B. Because shuttles have a schedule to keep with multiple stops, they may have a limit on the amount of time the truck can spend on site, as well as a limit on the total volume that is permitted from one client. For shuttles, depending on the locations involved, it is common for more than one truck to be used between pickup and delivery. Consolidated shuttles are usually the most cost-effective option, but they may also have a longer timeline between pickup and delivery. Exclusive use trucks, on the other hand, move only your shipment, and so there is that stronger control over the pickup and delivery timing. Excuses might be needed for shipments above a certain volume, so they're too large for a shuttle shipment, or maybe it's an entire exhibition that's being moved. Or jobs that need more labor time on site. Say you have a job with a lot of packing at your pickup location. And also shipments with high value or very tight timelines. Excuses also come into play when a courier is accompanying the shipment. Exclusive service will be more expensive. You're getting a whole climate-controlled truck positioned on a specific timeline. And it is not usually something that you'll need for an average shipment. So when you're ready to set up a shipment, you'll need to contact a vendor and provide them with information so that they can create a quote and you can decide if the estimated costs and the proposed schedule will work for you and your partners. Let's look at some of the information that can be needed in the quoting process. So a lot of details that the shipper will request center on the items being shipped and the locations involved. If an object is already packed, how is it packed? What are the pack dimensions? And that's height, length, and depth, and specify your measurement units. If you want the shipper to quote on packing the item, are you looking for soft packing or crating? And are there any special packing concerns or materials that you're requesting? The type of packing is ultimately your choice, but it is definitely something that the shipper can offer commentary on and suggestions for what is possible and what their specialists recommend. Details about access and parking at each location involved are very helpful. If there is a loading dock or a parking lot, are there elevators? Is there a security protocol? And nowadays, is there a COVID protocol for deliveries? If there are impediments inside a location like staircases or columns that the shipper will need to navigate with the shipment, that's also helpful to know. It's okay if you don't have all of this information up front and you need to suss it out as the process moves forward. But the more information you can share in the quoting stage will help the quote to be more accurate. Let the shipper know your timeline and any timing concerns so that they can identify the closest option they have. Most shuttle shipments will give you a window of a few days for the pickup and the delivery, and then maybe 24 to 48 hours ahead, they'll contact you to confirm the specific day and give a delivery window for the truck to arrive. I think that's something we're all fairly used to from other types of shipments, maybe if you've had furniture delivered, for example. Shippers will also ask if you need other services at delivery. Is this a straight pickup or drop off, or do you need the shipper to unpack at delivery? Do you need them to install any pieces while they're there? If so, knowing the type of walls the installation is on will help the shipper's team to have the right tools for the job. Labor charges might apply for even a short amount of time on site, and there are usually charges for specific things like hanging hardware or empty crate disposal. Schedules and costs can vary between different companies, so it's definitely smart to get quotes from a few companies and see what will work best with your timeline and your budget. Having a solid inventory that for items that you need to have packed will help the shipper to provide a more accurate quote. A basic inventory can include things like the name and title of the piece, the media, the dimensions, and if there is a chance for confusion, a photo and a description of the item is very helpful. A good shipper will be vigilant about the inventory to avoid incorrect pickups and deliveries, and also so that they can correctly plan for space in their truck and also accurately bill for the shipment. A quick note on insurance, which is another really big topic, but be mindful of your existing policies and specific loan requirements with insurance. For an extra fee, shippers may increase their liability for the declared value of an item while it is in transit or in storage at their facility. Knowing what's covered in your site's policy can help you choose whether or not you want to pursue that additional liability through a shipper. This is another good reason to have photos of an item before the shipment, because in the unfortunate event that damage occurs, it can be messy to untangle. It's also good to be aware of any pre-existing condition issues with the item, and ideally to have dimensions of significant areas of damage. Oftentimes, when you are choosing which shipping company to go with, the choice can come down to a few factors. Scheduling and cost are two of the big ones. Let's look at a few other things you may want to consider when selecting a shipper, and also at some tips that can hopefully help the whole process go more smoothly. The locations involved in a shipment can affect your options for shippers. But generally, for shipments in the continental US, you will have several companies from which to choose. Getting recommendations from colleagues can be a good place to start. You could also try reaching out directly to staff at museums or archives, other institutions who are located in the city your project is in, and see who those organizations have had good relationships with. Requests for shippers is also something that pops up a lot on free listservs like Museum Junction. So that's another place to check out. Usually folks looking for a firm to pack or move items in a certain region. I would encourage you to do your own research. Check out the company's website and speak with a few firms to find the best fit for your needs. You might want to ask about things like the training that their art handlers receive and the company's standards for soft packing, crate fabrication. There are many details to review for a warehouse facility if you are considering storage there. Security, fire suppression, HVAC system specs, and pest control are just a few things to ask about. Your shipper should be able to provide you with an overview of their facility and hopefully a full facilities report that outlines all of their systems. And if you're local to a facility, taking a tour is a good way to get to know the shipper and their services. On to some tips for the shipment and process. One thing to be mindful of for shuttle shipments is the routing of the truck. Shuttles usually make a loop through a particular region, like the Midwest or the Southeast. And some shippers also offer shuttles that go from one city to another, like maybe New York City to Boston, for example. Companies can let you know the general planned route the truck will take, and you may want to focus on options that limit the time that the objects are on the road. Also, make sure you know what size truck to expect at both pickup and delivery. Remember that companies may use different truck sizes for different routes, and sometimes trucks are switched out on the fly. It's especially important to know the truck size when you're dealing with a residential location, and make sure all parties are aware of the access situation there. Fine art service trucks are large custom vehicles, and they're not the same as a typical moving truck that you might see in your neighborhood. And remember that schedules can be disrupted by several factors. In this image, you can see a shipper's tractor trailer on the right as it's approaching delivery to a museum. The museum is in a residential neighborhood next to a lovely park, so not really a place that was designed for giant trucks, but the shipper and the museum had communicated, and so everyone was aware that tractor trailers were not ideal, but possible. The morning of this delivery, a winter storm dropped a few inches of snow for some extra fun. A city plow happened by at a very convenient time to help clear the way, and I snapped this photo. Shout out to the good folks at Crozier Fine Arts who made this delivery happen, but shipping can especially be an adventure in the winter months. When building your timeline for a project, keep in mind that there are situations that can arise and alter a pickup or delivery by a few hours or even a few weeks. Those things include delays at another job, storms, traffic and road closures, truck breakdowns, and more. When you've got a shipment set up, make sure you are reachable when both ends of the shipment are taking place, because the shipper may need to contact you to confirm details or changes to a job. The art handlers and drivers are often instructed to not accept any items beyond what's specified on their preset inventory, and to not perform any services beyond what's listed on the original order without first contacting their office. The reason for that is so that the person ultimately paying the bill can approve any changes. So if your donor throws you a curveball and wants to add some items to the shipment, the shipper should contact you ASAP to help sort things out. And many companies will do this automatically, but to also benefit your time, you can ask that the truck give you a call when it is nearing your site, maybe an hour or less if you like, so that you can be ready. Fine art service providers are used to working with clients that have had different levels of familiarity with the shipping process. Be vocal about any specific concerns or needs that you have, and don't hesitate to ask questions and check on the project as it's underway. Being actively engaged in your shipping projects makes you a good caretaker of the objects in your custody, and it helps build a partnership with the fine art service vendor. Objects are at their most vulnerable, when they're on the move, which means shipments can quickly become stressful when, say, a truck breaks down halfway to the delivery. Going into a project, the goal is to minimize surprises, and your shipper should also be working to help you catch as many of those details as possible. But be aware that delays can happen and are sometimes unavoidable, and we have to roll with the punches where we can. Clear communication with all parties can help to reduce the bumps in the road. And the last point I'll mention here is that it's not uncommon for there to be some difference between the quote that you book and the final bill. Most shippers will explain that their quotes are estimates based on the information provided. And the estimates are usually a very accurate projection of the final bill. But there are factors, sometimes unknown, that can alter the scope and cost of a project. An example of an unexpected change could be if your lender decides late in the process to have something delivered to their office instead of their home, and the office is in a totally different part of town or even outside of the city. Changes in an address, even just a different part of the same metropolitan area, can affect pricing, particularly in bigger cities like New York City or Miami. It can help to build in a small contingency to your shipping budget to offset some of those unexpected costs. So packing and shipping have their own unique language, and the terminology can vary from company to company. We'll wrap up with a look at some of the resources that shed light on packing and shipping and the different types of equipment and materials that are used. So there are some great organizations and resources out there, and I hope these will help you to feel better informed as you're working with a shipper on a project. The Association of Registrars and Collection Specialists, or ARCS, shares resources on collections care topics like shipping and insurance, so they're a great group to check out. Materials used for packing and crating are a big topic, and one that will continue to evolve as new research and ideas come out. And groups like Packin are a good source there. Stitch is a really interesting project whose goal is to help cultural heritage professionals make educated, sustainable choices that can lower the environmental impact of collections work and the materials that we use. One of the case studies that they have out right now looks at a few styles of crates and the environmental impact of the crate disposal, which is really interesting to think about. And there are many publications to familiarize you with some of the methods and equipment used in moving collections. Collection Care, an illustrated handbook for the care and handling of cultural objects, is one of the great books, and it has images which are so helpful. I will add that since many of the materials used in packing and shipping overlap with those used in storage, publications that are aimed at collection storage are often helpful sources for things like glossaries and descriptions of materials and methods. And thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. My email is listed here if you have questions and want to send me a note later on. We also have many resources shared on the CCAHA website and our YouTube channel, so please take a look there as well. A brief survey will pop up after this call, and if you have a moment, we would really appreciate your feedback because it helps us improve future programming. Thanks again, everyone. And if there are any questions or comments, happy to chat about those now, but thanks for joining us. Hi, Martha. I see your question here. Yes, environmentally sensitive packing materials. That's a really great question. The website that I mentioned that does the case studies on sort of sustainable and environmental choices, Stitch, they are a fantastic source for that because they're starting to think about those things. It is certainly a topic that has gotten some increasing attention in recent years. We at CCAHA, we created a list that focuses on vendors of conservation and preservation materials that offer more sustainable methods, as well as organizations that are LGBTQ+, BIPOC, and women owned and are operated. So I'm happy to share that list as part of the resources that we'll send out. But it is certainly something that is on the minds of collections care professionals and is becoming more studied, and that information is being more shared. Resources like Stitch are a really good place to check out to start to think about that more in depth. Crating offers, there are many styles and many materials used. Turtle crates are one option that has gained some momentum in recent years with organizations that are concerned about reusability and sustainability of crates. Turtle crates are made of more composite materials, fiberglass and foam instead of the traditional wood. And so they tend to have a longer use life. Turtle crates are also very, very recyclable from what I understand. So I know a lot of museums have started to focus on using turtle crates when they need to crate things to try to cut down on their footprint that way. But I'll be sure to include some additional resources there to answer that. So I hope that helps. Awesome. Yeah, the link to the inclusive vendor list is posted in the chat. So I hope that helps folks. And if there are any questions that pop up later on, please feel free to drop me a note. I'm happy to help connect you with resources however I can. But thank you so much for tuning in today, everyone.